Okay. So, hello everybody. Welcome to today's session about leadership mindset. So, thank you again. Second time, Mukesh Gupta doing something, a presentation on the topic. So, thank you for being here. Stage is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. So today, I think all of us will agree that we live in a world where there is a whole lot of things that are moving really, really fast, and which requires a completely different way of leading organizations if we want to do really well. Now, what I'm going to do is for the next 45 minutes or so, I'm going to talk about number one, a leadership model, which I think is very apt for the world that we live in. And as part of the leadership model today, we will focus on the mindsets that we need to inculcate in ourselves as leaders, which helps us in making sure that we are able to not only be a better leader, but also create high performance leadership within the organization as well, not just within ourselves, but also within the organization. So we'll talk about 9 mindsets from that point of view. So let's start with the leadership model that I spoke about. We are living in a world which is extremely chaotic right now. And if we have to boil it down, what is it that as leaders we need to do in order to do really well in this environment is 7 things if you actually look at it. So number one is we need to be able to manage our mindsets really well. So we will go deeper into this part of the model today a lot more than anything else. Then we need to have tools which we need to be able to deploy, which we need to be able to use in order to lead our teams, manage our teams, and all of that, right? So that's the 2 easy parts. As leaders, we need to be self-aware, high on self-awareness and high on social awareness. What this means is that it is not just enough for us to have the right mindsets and to have the right tool sets that can help us drive business for our organizations. It is also important for us to have high levels of self-awareness. Another way you can put it as is emotional intelligence, but I prefer self-awareness and social awareness as 2 totally different entities, simply because of the fact that self-awareness is all about knowing what is it that you want from the environment, knowing what it is that you are trying to drive, knowing what triggers you, knowing what are some of the things that are challenging for you, so that you can bring in different people along. So that's managing your emotions. All of that kind of boils down into the self-awareness bucket. Social awareness is all about navigating people around you. So whether it is sometimes there is politics where there are more than 5 people in a team, there is bound to be some amount of friction. And especially, we live in a chaotic world where we need diverse sets of opinions. The moment you have diverse sets of opinions, cognitive diversity, as they call it, cultural diversity, cognitive diversity, it becomes super important for the leader to be socially aware of what's happening, who's contributing, who's not contributing, whose views have you heard, whose views have not heard. Are there any undercurrents within the organization, within the team? What is said, what is unsaid, what is left unsaid, and all of that. So all of that is a part of the social awareness. Once you have all of this, you need to be able to make sense of everything that is going on, understanding what it is that you want to achieve as an organization and as a leader, making sense of what mindsets you need to be using in the current situation, what are the tools that we can use in the current set of situation, what do you want to achieve, and what is the social awareness of what is happening. So you make sense of all of this. Once you've made sense of all of this, you can do one of 2 things. You can either act upon it, which means you do something. Or you can communicate. Communication can be speaking, can be presenting, can be having one-on-one conversations. So all of that is kind of falls in the communication bracket. Action is sitting down with someone and directing them, coaching them. All of that then becomes your action bit. So that's the model that I have a feeling that works really well in extremely chaotic environments that we today live in. So that being the basis of what we're going to talk about today, we will dive a little deeper in terms of the different mindsets that we need to cultivate within ourselves. But before we even go there, what is a mindset, right? So if you have to look at a parallel between mindset, then you can say that mindset is like the operating system of our body, right? Um, so they mindsets defines what is possible and what is not possible for us to do. Mindsets set the limitations in terms of what is it that you are focusing and what is it that you are not focusing on. If you actually look at the way humans interact with our environment, there is whole lot of information that is coming to us through all our senses, right? Whether it is through sight, sound, touch, smell, taste, uh, all sorts of information that is coming through us. What we end up doing, what our mind ends up doing, is filtering out everything else but the most important and the most crucial, and only focus on that. And how does it do this? It does this through a mechanism called pattern matching. So it knows what is it that you're focusing on or what is it that you want to do. That is the mindset that we will talk about. And once you have or once you are in a mindset, then everything that is relevant for that mindset comes through. Everything that is not relevant to that mindset is kind of faded away. That's the way mindsets work. So, given that that's the way mindset works, what are some of the mindsets that we need to cultivate within ourselves as leaders? Not just ourselves, but also help our leaders in the organization develop, and not just develop for themselves, but also have a language using which we can talk about these mindsets, we can discuss these mindsets as well. So once you have a language associated with a particular topic, it becomes that much more easier to communicate with each other. Everyone has the same understanding of what we are talking about. So my purpose today is in the next 30-35 odd minutes, we will go ahead and talk about 9 different mindsets, and hopefully everyone on this call is then able to have a intelligent conversation around each one of these mindsets, assuming that all of us know what we mean when we talk about a specific mindset. Now, before I go forward, I would like to take a pause here and see if anyone has any thoughts or comments or questions. Take a minute. We will answer the questions at the end of the session, but it is good idea to stop, think about what you've listened so far, and post your questions or comments on the Q&A box, so that we kind of are able to assimilate whatever it is that we've heard so far and make sense out of whatever we've heard. Whether you agree or not agree is a different thing, but at least we need to be able to process whatever we've heard so far. And so I'll just take a 30-second pause and ask you to probably share your thoughts or questions on the Q&A. So this is one of the things that we will be doing. What I've realized is we get so much information from so many different sources that we do not have time to process the information, right? So that's why these breaks as we go along. So let's just go ahead with the first mindset. But before we even go there, Carol Dweck in her book Mindset spoke about 2 different kinds of mindset, which is growth mindset, one is fixed mindset. The difference being, people who have a growth mindset think that we can grow, continue to expand our horizons, continue to get better, and people who have fixed mindset think that I have a certain amount of talent, I have a certain amount of skills that is fixed. I cannot change. I cannot get better. I cannot acquire new skills. I cannot change my mindsets. And this is who I am. And that's about it. Whereas people with a growth mindset can evolve and can emerge, probably is the right word to use, as as they experience what's around them, what they experience. Right. So this is a very popular book. I'm sure a lot of people would have already read about it. This is one perspective of looking at mindset. There are other perspectives of looking at mindset, which is what we will talk about today. The first mindset that I talk about, which is very, very important for all leaders, is a yes and mindset. I'm sure a lot of you would have watched improv comedy shows on television while growing up, or on live. One of the primary how do I put it, rules of an improv comedy show is yes and, which means that you have to first accept whatever has happened before this right moment. You have to agree to whatever has happened, and then say yes, and what is it that you want to do going forward. What this also does is it creates a situation where you do not tend to argue with what happened before. You do not tend to question what happened before. Yes, of course, you need to learn from it. But even more important is, before you can learn from what happened before, you have to first accept that this has happened. A lot of times, what we have found is teams which do not accept what happened before remain stuck in that area. In the past, when the environment around us did not change as fast as it does today, it was still okay to kind of stay stuck for a few, for a period of time before moving ahead. But living in today's world, where the world changes so fast, and the speed of change is so fast and accelerating even further, it is important that we accept what came before and kind of move forward from there on, and do it really, really quickly. So what this also means is, this mindset also makes sure that there are no mistakes. What happened has happened. Now, what this means when I say there are no mistakes is, what can we do with what we have got so far, which drives us to where we want to go. So whatever has happened. In fact, a lot of inventions, a lot of innovations have happened because the scientists or the innovators actually accepted what happened before. Penicillin was created like that. Radium or radioactivity was discovered by like that. Microwave was discovered like that. X-ray machines were discovered like that, because someone accepted what happened and wanted to make sure, what can we do with what happened. So yes, this happened. Now what can we do with what happened, right? So that's the first mindset. So again, I'll just take a 10-second pause so that you assimilate what you've heard, and share your questions, thoughts, and comments. So the second mindset is the mindset of a designer. How does a designer typically think, right? Designers know that for any complex problems, which is what we as leaders face in our day-to-day life, right? So again, there are two kinds of problems. One is problems that are like clouds, and there are problems that are like clocks. Problems that are like clocks are those which you can tear them apart, understand how each part works with each other, and once you understand all of that, you can tear apart any watch and put them back, and it will work exactly the same way as it worked. Whereas clouds is emergent, and you cannot take them apart and put them together and assume that they will work the same way. a lot of the problems, in fact, 95+% of the challenges that we face as leaders are cloud problems, which are emergent in nature, which means that there are no single straight answers. There are constraints. And then designers, what they do is typically they do a lot of lots of prototypes. They test each prototype, and they use the divergent convergent process to kind of keep sifting through and understanding the problem as they go along, while acting on the problem itself. So this is solving the problem by doing prototyping and testing. So that's the crux of a designer's mindset. Just think about it. In what scenario in your life do you think you could have benefited by having a designer's mindset? Right. Another aspect of designer's mindset is that the problem that they're trying to solve is never the real problem that they're trying to solve. So they always are looking at trying to figure out what is the real problem, what is the real challenge in any given situation, in order for them to solve that as a root cause problem. The third mindset that I'd like to talk about is the mindset of an entrepreneur. How do typically entrepreneurs think, right? They look at a seed of opportunity in every given situation. Give them any situation, they will have the ability to go look for what is the opportunity in there. They're able to make decisions under uncertainty. They're able to have a bias towards action. They have this thinking that there is no success or failure that is permanent. If something that has worked, that is good. It worked for now. If that's something that has not worked, it's not worked for now. They always bring in an outsider's perspective. They look at things from a fresh eye, right? The common misunderstanding that people have about entrepreneurs is that they are risk takers. In fact, nothing can be further from the truth. They are people who find all the possible risks that are there in a given opportunity and find ways of mitigating it or reducing it before moving forward. They have the ability to move people, and they have the ability to drive change. And they understand how change happens, how people change. Right? We will talk about change a little bit later at the end of the presentation as well. But the crux of an entrepreneur's mindset is three things. One, there's an opportunity in every situation. Can you find it? There is bias towards action, outsider's perspective. Can you look at things from a fresh set of eyes? Those are the three crux of an entrepreneur's mindset. Right? So I'll just stop again for 10 seconds to allow for you to gather your thoughts, maybe 15 seconds before we move to the next one. And please do interact with me through Q&A. I'm tracking the questions as well so that I know if I need to go deeper in a particular topic or not, and whether yeah. Next is the scientist's mindset. So what do scientists typically do? They set up experiments. They create hypotheses saying that I think because of this, if I do this, this should happen. Once they have an hypothesis, they go out and test the hypothesis. And if the hypothesis is true, then they go ahead and do the next test, then the next test, then the next test. And not just that, they share the outcome with the entire world through peer-reviewed papers. Right? The single most important aspect of a scientist's mindset is they are right until proven wrong. The hypothesis is right until proven wrong, which means that they know that at some point in time, the hypothesis will prove wrong. And we will we'll talk about this hypothesis again while we talk about another mindset. But the scientist mindset is all about experiments. Create an hypothesis, test the hypothesis by running an experiment, a controlled experiment, if you actually know what I mean. I'm sure all of you would have done a controlled experiment while you were in college or in school. You observe, you hypothesize, you run an experiment, you observe, make a note of what came through, you test whether the hypothesis right or wrong, and continue to do this hypothesis. For those of you who understand physics, you know that there are multiple theories that do not align with each other, but still are agreed to be valid until they are proven wrong. Right? So that's the core of a scientist's mindset. The next mindset is that of a toddler's mindset. So what do toddlers do? They are curious about everything, right? So they will go touch everything, they will put everything in their mouth, they will keep walking, they'll keep falling. There is an infant lab in the US which actually studies infant motor development. Karen Adolph is the scientist who studies infant motor development. And in her research, she has found that for every hour that a toddler is in motion, they fall more than 39 times for every hour in motion, which is, if you think about it, humongous in terms of the number of falls that they experience. They never stop. They never get tired of falling and not being able to walk or crawl, for that matter. They have absolutely zero fear of failure, and they are learning through practice. They're just keeping getting up, walking, getting up, walking. When they try to figure out what is it that makes the child, which is walking on all fours, to actually get up and stand, and in the process fall so many different times, is that the child experiences the world as four E's. So the experience is embodied, which is in their body, which means that if you actually are on your four knees, on all fours, if you actually look at it, your neck movement is very, very restricted, which means that the vision is also very, very restricted. And the child, being curious, wants to have more and more vision. So every time it kind of stands up, the amount of things that it can see is very, very large when compared to how it is on four legs. They also see that the moment it is able to get up and stand on two legs, the interactions that it can have with its entire environment is extremely high. So it is embodied, embedded, and once it gets up and is able to move along, the ability for it to interact with the people around the child is also very high, which is encultured. And of course, each one of these actually enables it to do that much more, that even more movement, even more exploration, even more learning. And that is the reason why toddlers always continue to get up and fall down, get up, fall down, get up. Think about it. Think about the fact that in which part of your life, official life, as a leader, could you have benefited, or could your team have benefited from having the mindset of a toddler? Right? Which part of your professional life you think can benefit from being or having a toddler's mindset? So if I have to summarize this entire thing in one word, in one sentence, it is no stopping me. You cannot stop me. So the next one is the philosopher's mindset. Right? So the philosopher's mindset is all about self-reflection. It's all about holding multiple beliefs or opposing beliefs, multiple perspectives at the same time, not at different time, but at the same time, right? It also allows you to do critical thinking in terms of what's working, what's not. The entire thing about using your mind to go deep within yourself and understand what's happening around you. So since mankind has been around, philosophers have been around. The reason why philosophers are still around us is the fact that as a species, this is one of the most or unique thing that we can attest to having had a significant impact on us being such a dominant species on the earth. Which is number one. Philosophers' mindset is all about using imagination to hold, to do self-reflection, and hold opposing beliefs at the same time, right? Multiple perspectives. One way to look at this is if you actually go to YouTube and search for the Guardian advertisement on perspectives, it's an ad that ran in the 1960s, created by Bill Bernbach of DDB agency. You will understand what I mean by perspectives. As I said, our mind cannot look at everything at the same time, so it has to find a way to kind of restrict what we can focus at the same time. And what philosophers' mindset allows us to do is to break that hold and kind of look at multiple different perspectives at the same time, right? I'll just hold for a minute. Just imagine or think about when could you have had or benefited from having had multiple opposing beliefs to be true at the same time. This is a super critical skill right now in our societies as well, because we are all almost all countries are kind of divided and divided towards extremes. And one of the reasons why we are such divided is because we are not able to hold these opposing beliefs together at the same time. There are times when there are two opposing things can be true at the same time. I mean, traditional classic example is blind men looking at elephant, right? Someone thinks it's like a trunk, someone thinks it's like a who touches tail, thinks about it's something else, and so on and so forth. The ability to understand that what I think is right, because that's what my experience tells me, but at the same time, what someone else says could also be right, because that's their lived experience, is the key for having a philosopher's mind. So athlete's mindset is the next one. So what do athletes typically do? So they are probably the best fusion of mind and body coming together. I mean, of course, dancers and musicians are also same way. So are developers. Any creative act brings in mind and body together, but nothing like an athlete, right? So in order for them to perform at their peak, they need to have their mind and body together in sync. Athletes believe in having a personal coach, because any professional athlete always has a personal coach, right? But they know that the coaches can actually help them get better, and it is in their interest to get better every single day. Practice, 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 continuous improvement. One of the things that athletes do really well, and this is something that Eric Anderson talks about in his book Peak Performance, is that they identify a small little thing that they need to do. For example, if you're practicing golf, you practice one particular swing hundreds of times and improve that, and then move to the next tiny little thing and improve that, and then move to the next tiny little thing and improve that, right? So for example, in tennis, backhand chip, I know for a matter of fact, if you're You practice that over and over and over and over again, right? And that is what continuous improvement is all about. And the most important thing about athletes is they know that they perform, and whether victory or defeat is right then and there. And they know that they cannot win all the games. They cannot win all the time. Of course, they try to. They go in and give their best, but they accept the result with whatever the result may be. And they perform such a way that there are no regrets. Well, again, stop for 15, 20 seconds. Think about the fact as to know where could you benefit from having an athlete's mindset. Where in your leadership can you benefit from having an athlete's mindset? Do you believe in a personal coach? It can be a professional personal coach, or it could be someone that mentors you, but you need to have someone who can actually coach you. What is the one skill that you want to practice and get really, really good at? So the next mindset I will talk about is the actor's mindset. So what do actors do typically? They observe people around you, around them. They understand and notice the nuances that each one of us has. So for example, I know this as a matter of fact that one of my first managers when I started my career had this habit of fidgeting with his nose every time he got really stressed. As an actor, if you notice that, and if you really want to portray being stressed on stage or in front of a camera, you do the same thing, and people will automatically observe that that it's a stress reaction. Actors are probably the most empathetic people that you can have, because they are literally embodying the emotions of someone else or some other character within themselves. So they are the epitome of the power of empathy. Good actors, at least, right? High performing actors. They have the ability to lose their individuality, right? And get involved in the situation, in the shoe of the person that they are trying to portray. As leaders, a lot of times we are put in situations where we are required to, number one, show and display empathy. And there are times when we are supposed to lose our individuality as well and just be present in the situation, doing what the situation demands. I'm sure each one of us has experienced this, right? Each one of us has acted in a way that was not what you would have actually done in a given situation, because that was the right thing to do. And of course, actors are very emotional beings. When you are in an actor's mindset, you need to be aware that emotions will flow. That's the self-awareness part of the leadership model that I spoke about, right? Emotions will flow when you're in an actor's mindset. You need to be able to manage or stay in control of those emotions. I'll stop there. I'm sure you would have experienced, or you've already had an actor's mindset in your day-to-day leadership engagements. But again, think about where you can benefit the most by having an actor's mindset. The last one is a systems mindset that I'll talk about. When we spoke about cloud problems versus clock problems, right? I shared that most of the problems, almost all of them that we interact with, or that all situations that we face, and everything that we interact with, is like a cloud, which is emergent in nature, right? So it is super critical to have a systems mindset. Now, if you actually look at everything that we experience, it's a system. So automobile is a system. An organization is a system. Our body is a system. A team is a system. A market is a system. A department is a system. Once we start looking at everything as systems and systems interacting with another system, we can understand the simple reality that all of these interactions create an emergent reality, right? And in that emergent reality, there is always unintended consequences when you try to change something in a system. So when you interact with the system, you obviously are trying to change something in the system. And when you change something, assuming that this change will result in X, we should always also remember that X will or may not happen, but there will always be another unintended consequences called Y. So the moment we are aware of this and we can start looking at what the potential unintended consequence for the action that we are taking to shift a particular system is, we can be much better in control because it will not take you by surprise. Right? Every single thing about systems mindset is about thinking upstream or in abstraction. So one of the things that systems thinking experts talk about is the system in which a problem manifests. For example, if you see that there is a problem in your sales pipeline, you don't have enough of what you want to have. Typically, that's the manifestation of the problem. The solution, the best solution for that manifestation of the problem is never within that system. It's always at one level, at least one level above, or at least at one level abstraction, or in a different system. But generally what happens is, we find a particular problem or a challenge in a particular system, in a department, in an organization, in a team, and we try to address it locally in that system, in that team, in that department. It is never the most optimum solution. All system thinking experts talk about is, you need to go upstream as to find out where exactly is the problem and of whose this is the manifestation. In the example that we spoke about, which is sales, lack of sales pipeline, the problem could be that the product is not developed in a way that is market relevant. There could be a problem with the marketing campaigns that you have run, or the problem could be the customers that you're targeting is not the right set of customers. I don't know. So the idea is, start thinking upstream, start thinking in abstraction, or going one level up or two level up in order for you to have these solutions really well. Another thing that we need to understand here is the difference between analysis and synthesis. Again, comes back to the cloud problems versus clock problems. Analysis is all about taking things apart, understanding how they work, putting them together. It is all about understanding, right? So this is what a lot of us do a lot of the times. We do a lot of analysis. Synthesis is not just about understanding, taking things apart, but also understanding the interplay between the things. How does interacting with one system affect the three other systems to which it is connected to? So synthesis is all about emergence and understanding the emergent property of the systems that we are interacting with. Again, I'll stop for 10-15 seconds. This is a little heavy in terms of, and this is also very, how do I put it, common in our organization at least, and critical in our organization to have this mindset. So I'll just stop for 10 seconds. Think about where can you benefit from having a systems mindset. Tarun, that's the last piece that we will talk about, which is how do you bring all of these things together? Knowing these mindsets is not enough. You should also be able to leverage these mindset and put all of them together to use in a given moment, in a given situation. That's the most important part of knowing these mindsets as well, right? So mindsets are very, very powerful, as Tarun said in his question. Mindsets are really powerful when we can switch to the right mindset at the right time with minimal effort. I remember I saw a question around how do you change your mindset, which is so difficult. How do you break a wrong mindset, or how do you change behavior by changing mindsets, right? So let's spend a few minutes on how do we do this. So I think it is pretty simple to do as long as we are cognizant of the fact that we have all these different modes or mindsets that we can choose from. That's the first step, is to understand that all of these mindsets are available for us to choose from, right? So just like the right tool for the job, if we have a set of tools we can choose from, we know what tool to choose. Just by knowing all these different mindsets and being aware of them enables us to pick and choose which mindset is the right mindset for the given situation. Now, that is not enough. One of the ways that we can do this really well is by putting in the practice. So what do I mean by practice? Putting in the practice. Not for all problems, not all the time, but for some problems which you think are important, for some situations which you think are pivotal situations in your day or in your week, it is a good idea to look at the situation from each one of the mindsets. For example, if you are approaching a very important moment with a customer, or if you're trying to solve a particular problem which you think can have a significant impact on yourself, on your business, on your team, then it is worthwhile to stop there and say, okay, if I want to solve this problem, or if I want to look at the situation as a toddler, what do I learn from that? If I look at this situation as a philosopher, what can I learn from that? If I look at the situation from the mindset of a scientist, what can I learn from that? If I look at it from an actor's perspective, what can I look at it? To start with, you can explore, depending upon the time that you have, as many as you can, but at least pick 3 of these mindsets that you think could be the most relevant in the given situation, right? How do you come to know about it? Doesn't matter. Whatever your gut tells you, pick those 3 and think from those 3 perspectives. That itself will have a significant impact on how you approach those situations or how you solve those challenges or problems that you come to. So once you start doing this over a period of time, this becomes second nature. The way conscious and unconscious mind works is, the conscious mind. Just imagine an office where there is a set of 20 people working on their laptops, and there is one senior executive who walks in and says, I want you to find out everything that you can about, let's say, infant motor development, and he goes away. This executive who comes and tells the 20 people what he wants to focus on is our conscious mind telling our subconscious mind on what to focus on. And then the subconscious mind will automatically look at every single input that comes from every single source that your brain receives from all the different senses, sort it, focus on what is it that you really want to focus on, and based on the input given by your executive mind or executive or your conscious mind, and keep the results ready for whenever the executive wants to, or suddenly it pops up in your conscious mind. That's how typically the functions, the mind functions. Now, what happens with mindsets is the same. The moment you put yourself in the mindset of a particular, put yourself in a particular mindset, automatically your subconscious mind starts thinking, focusing on each one of those aspects of that particular mindset. The more you do it, the better your subconscious gets at leveraging each one of these mindsets. So the more practice, the better you get at it. And the better you get at it, the more effortless it becomes. And the more effortless it becomes, the more automatic it becomes.
Mukesh, can you remove your reminder?
Okay, so just 1 second. Let me just, for some reason, I'm not able to get my mouse here.
Okay, just go ahead.
Yeah. Now should be gone now, right?
Yep, it is.
Yeah. So as I was saying, the more unconscious it gets, the more automatic this entire switching between mindsets can get. But to start with, it requires a lot of conscious effort. It requires you to be cognizant of the fact that you need to force yourself to think or to apply some of these mindsets in situations that you face early. So I think that kind of sums it up in terms of mindsets. But so